Hello everyone, this is Katie and today I'm going to be showing you how to draw a picture in charcoal. I say charcoal, it's digital charcoal, so here we're really trying to replicate a more traditional style. The challenge I set myself today was to use only the native brushes from Procreate. So that's none of the ones that you buy online for brush packs that are really expensive. We're purely just using what we have as standard. Normally I draw with the charcoal master pack, but this is one that you have to pay for. It's about $22 from Lane Draws. It's a great pack, but what I would suggest is you don't need to go out and spend a lot of money, especially if you are not using this regularly or if you're just getting started. I promise you the brushes that you get in Procreate are perfectly adequate for the job. I think it's really tempting to look at amazing works of art and try and find out what the brushes the artists use, thinking that using those brushes means that we can achieve the same results. Unfortunately, I wish that was the case, but it's really not. You can get the same results by using standard brushes. Certainly those artists can. It's the practice and the experience of the artist that really helps here. So the brush that I'll be using today is the Bonobo chalk brush. You can see I've got it selected here. It comes in the sketching section. Some of the later versions of Procreate don't have it, so you might have to go online to get it, but it would be a free download if you don't have it in your brush pack, so just have a Google if that's the case. The background I've got is a Paperlike background. I have got another video on how to create that. Again, you don't need to buy it, you can create it yourself using Procreate. So yeah, just check out the separate video I'll link below if you want to find out how to make your own paper texture. I've decided to draw Harry Styles today. I really like this picture. He's got an interesting face to draw, and this picture on the Dazed cover has a really good lighting. So we've got the highlights, we've got the low lights. So yeah, that's the reason I chose that. I'm doing a split screen. That's the way I prefer to do it. You can, as you saw the pop-up, you can use the canvas and draw from that, but I just prefer the split screen. It works better on the laptop. As usual, I'm starting small. If you've watched my other video, you'll see that's my preferred approach. This time I'm really just trying to get it very small and using that Bonobo chalk with kind of a dark grey colour just to really block in the shape of his head. You can see that I have a tendency to remove the tilt, but what I'm doing here is just looking on the left hand side. I've got the canvas the same size as the picture on the left. It's very small on my screen. I do have quite a big screen. I've got an iPad Pro, but you can see I've got it quite small and I'm really just using a really big brush, or I've popped that brush really up high and big so that I can start blocking in the colour. So just looking from left to right and just copying the shape. So what you've got to do is almost show your brain or teach your brain that it's not a person you're looking at, it's a set of shapes. So that's really what I'm trying to do here. One thing that I also find quite useful in having the pictures next to each other is what you can do is you can just draw these lines across. I've actually drawn them on the screen here just to demonstrate, but usually what I do is I just almost whisper my, without actually touching the screen, get my brush and just on my pen and just draw it across, so I can just double check that everything's in the right position. So the chins are lined up, the top of the head is lined up, the nose lined up, and that gives you a big starting point to get everything in the right place. You can do the same thing if you're drawing from life. You can just, you see people holding the pencils up. That's all they're doing, is they're just trying to figure out, if I'm going from the end of the nose to the chin, what's that distance? And does that, is that the same as the end of the nose to the hairline? And that's really what they're doing with those pencils. So just having the screens next to each other, you don't even have to measure, you can just kind of go across. You might want to measure the width just to double check. I think we have a tendency to either squash things sideways or stretch, or maybe squash them top to bottom, so we make them narrower or wider than they are. So that maybe sometimes just measuring the width and comparing that to the height can help there. But I find when it's quite a small size like this, you can actually just kind of eyeball it. It's just a case of trying to teach your brain not to get involved in it. So you're really just kind of almost squinting at the picture and trying to forget that it's a person and just kind of replicate the shapes that you're seeing. Okay, so what I'm doing now is I'm sort of using the brush quite lightly, and I'm just trying to really get a sense of the form turning. So I'm really trying not to get, I mean, like you see, I've sort of had a tendency to start diving into the features already, but really what you should be doing here is just kind of trying to get a sense of that 3D shape. You're going to have plenty of time later to build in the detail and get those highlights and kind of noodle on the eyes and all that stuff. But I think if you get a really solid idea of the form in space, so the highlight and the way that it turns, then you've almost done 90% of the effort. So a few things I'm doing here. So I'm trying to look for the really dark areas. So you can see it's almost, there's a very dark line that runs across his eyebrow and the edge of his nose and down to his lip and then inside of his mouth and then down to his chin. So I'm just trying to kind of track that line and get it in the right place. Also trying to get the edge of his face, which is also quite dark, in the right place, and starting to kind of get a feel for where the nose might be in the mouth. Still, I mean, it's quite small so you can't see it, but the brush is really, it's a chalk brush and it really is almost like a fuzzy mist, so it's quite nice to draw with. So yeah, I just find it really nice way of just kind of misting in the details, and it stops you from focusing on the details. The other brush I'll be using is a pencil brush, so I've picked you see I'm trying to, what am I doing? Oh yeah, so what I did here is I spotted that I'd started drawing on the blooming the paper layer. So usually what we should be doing is keep the paper layer separate and then draw on a separate layer. It makes it nice and easy. Obviously I didn't do that, so that's fine, it happens. So I'm just kind of adjusting my approach. When I'm erasing, instead of using the eraser, you can either use the chalk brush with that background colour, or I've just filled in a background colour so I can erase. The eraser I'm using is the same one, so the bonobo chalk brush I've used for the eraser and the pencil. That just keeps things really consistent, so that you're applying colour down and you're taking it off all with the same brush. So yeah, because it's quite soft at the moment. So I think what I've done here is I skipped over to a 2B brush, so that was the other brush I used. So I've just used the two brushes, the sketching brush, the bonobo chalk, and also the 2B brush, which I think is also in sketching. The 2B just allows me to bring some kind of definition in. So I'm just using the brush at this stage. I'm not really drawing, I'm just trying to kind of pick out a little bit more of the form. When it is really so fuzzy with a bonobo brush, it's quite difficult to see, to get a handle on where the edges are, and I think at this stage I just really needed a little bit more definition in there, just so I can kind of mentally check that everything's in the right place. So I think once I've got a few of the edges in, like you can see here, what we call this really is the block in. So it's almost like, I mean, there's more than two tones, but you've got the dark and the light all mapped out, so you know what you're looking at, and that's when it becomes a little bit easier just to kind of check between the two. So I'm just trying to pin down the corner of his mouth, the corner of his eyes, not going into too much detail, and just kind of getting everything mapped out. I mean, you can see it, I can see looking now it's not perfect, so there's errors. What we can do, and what I've done in previous videos, is if you get to the stage where you're really stuck and you can see it's not quite right but you don't know how, just drop in the original source image. I think, as I mentioned, that I could see the eye was wrong, and this is a standard error I make. So usually what I do, and because I know that I do this, I try and look at the distance between the eyes. So you can see here, this is what I usually end up with, is an eye that's in the wrong place. So I was doing a voiceover, but it sounded so rubbish that I'm just re-recording it. But it's quite easy to get the eye in the wrong place, so you really need to pay a lot of attention to the distance between the eyes, and it should be the same as the distance, like the width of the eye. So it kind of looks like I'm right here, but I'm really not. It's because I'm measuring the wrong thing. So the eye on the right hand side is in the wrong place. It's kind of drifted off. So what you can do is, if you're not really sure where everything is and you want to fix it, you can actually, once you in a stage where you think the drawing is about right, what you can do is you can bring in your original picture and just check everything's in the right place, and you'll see me doing that in a minute. I think before I do that, I just wanted to try and fix as much as possible, and get it to a place where I think it is as good as possible. I know some people have a tendency to use pictures to trace. I think it's easy to let yourself fall into that habit. What I would say is, although tracing a picture does give you quick and easy results, if you always trace a picture, then you never get better at that first stage of the drawing, which is that, being able to capture where everything is. So my only suggestion is, if it's practice, just don't skip that first stage of the drawing. It is tempted to trace. I know it looks better, it's good for our ego because you get a better result, but you're really kind of cheating yourself of being able to handle the whole process from the beginning to the end. So yeah, make sure you have a go first at drawing it before you start kind of tracing or laying in the original photo or anything like that. So just really get it as good as you can. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm just kind of trying to block in the sides of his head, and yeah, just trying to get it in the right place. So this is what I'm talking about, overlaying the picture. So this allows us the midway point. So we're still checking everything's in the right place. We're allowing ourselves the opportunity to fix it, but we're not cheating ourselves of the practice of actually getting better at drawing the face in the first place. So you can see what I've done here is I've just brought the transparency down to that source image, and I've just spent a long time just kind of trying to resize it and twist it until it really is over the image as best I can. It might be quite difficult if your picture is really far off. Mine's pretty close, so it's fairly easy for me. So what you can see when I'm going kind of spinning the transparency up and down is there is a few mistakes, so although a lot of it is in the right place. I've got the size of his hair right, that's great. That's an improvement from my previous 2 years ago or so when I first started doing this. The ear's in the right place, amazing. What I've really got wrong is his eyeball and where that sits in his eye socket. The nose is pretty good, but the way I've kind of blocked in the picture, almost, I've not really picked up the ball of his nose properly, so I've just fixed that now because I'm worried that having that smudge of colour there might distract me later on. And I've also got the bottom lip in the wrong place, but I don't think that's something I picked up on, or at least it's not something I fixed. I noticed it later on in the process and then had to have a big mess of fixing it. So yeah, you can see, like, from where I'm drawing now, this is just me doing it for the purpose of the camera. I wouldn't normally do these lines in. I mean, you can, but there is no need to draw those lines in. So just trying to really check out. So you can see I've got a lot of it in the right place. So the edge of his face is pretty good. I've got his neck pretty good. That's always tricky, getting that tilt of the neck and the width of the neck right. His forehead's in the right place. So it's not bad, is it, really? Yeah, I mean, obviously I practice a lot, so it's taken me a long time to get here. But when I compare where I was maybe 18 months ago when I started first using Procreate, probably 2 years now, I've come on so much just by doing this exercise regularly, drawing the head, drawing, checking it, fixing it, then noticing a pattern. What do I do wrong every time? I do the eyes wrong every time. I often do the ear in the wrong place. Then, once you know what you do wrong, then almost stop yourself before you make mistakes. So like I'm doing now with the ear, if I know I always get the ear in the wrong place, let's make doubly sure that I look and measure across where it comes to on the face, so I can make sure I'm putting that ear in the right place. I make sure I get the right tilt, so it kind of it follows along the line of the back of the jaw. So yeah, all those little things. So if you notice you do the same thing wrong time and time again, just stop yourself next time if you can. Mentally make a point before you draw the ear of saying, no, I'm not going to do the same mistake as always this time. I'm going to make sure I get it right. Okay, so I've kind of done a few tweaks on the picture, so you can see I've just kind of redrawn that eye where I think it should be, and now I've gone back to looking at the picture again. I've noticed a few things that look a little bit off, so I've lightened up his forehead. Yeah, so I'm back on the chalk now. So what I've done is I've tried to have a go at picking out the highlights a little bit. I find this quite helpful. So I've just picked a slightly, it's white, so you can pick a white, or you can take the background colour and just lighten it up a bit. I'm just trying to pick out where some of those highlights are on the face. So you really want to go quite gently. If you're going in with a highlight and you're putting it on top of shadow, then you need to have a look at your shadow and maybe line it up a little bit. One thing I would really stay clear of is don't have the temptation to take a bunch of highlight and add it in the dark section. So you can see on the left hand side, you can see there's a little bit of light falling across his eye. It'd be really tempting to get that highlight colour and just pop a little bit in the shadow like that. No, we don't want to do that, because I think it's your eyeball just adjusts to the colour around it. So what we really want to do to get that looking right is we want to darken the area around it, because actually if you picked the colour in the shadow of his eye and compared it to the light side, the light of his eye is actually about the same colour as the shadow on the right hand side under his eyebrow. So I think your brain can trick you into thinking things are lighter than they are if they're surrounded by shadow, or things are darker than they are if they're sitting around where the light is. So one thing I would suggest is, once you've decided which area is your shadow and which area is your light, when you're working in the shadow, avoid adding light, just make things darker. So this is just like a little drawing, I think. So I did record the sound with the video, but because the video actually ended up going on for about 1.5 hours, I decided, oh, no one wants to watch that. And also there was a lot of me kind of waffling on about random things. So what I was trying to draw there is actually, we want to keep the 3D form. So we want to keep the highlight in the light area, and we want to keep the dark in the dark area. We want to make sure that we show the shadow as it disappears from view and goes away from the light. So yeah. So still working on this. So what I've done is I was kind of a bit undecided about how to handle that blob of hair that's just kind of falling in front of his eyebrow. In the end, I decided to kind of try and ignore it for the most part, and maybe add it on towards the end. I don't want it to be a distraction, so I've had to try and pretend it's not there. Same with his jewellery as well. I think if I added it in, I decided it'd be a little bit of a distraction. I want the focus to be on his face and his features, so I've kind of taken the executive decision to just kind of ignore that. The approach I ended up going for in this is, I almost wanted it to be like sort of like a soft focus. So I decided where the area of interest was. It was his left eye, but on our right hand side, his nose and his mouth. And I really wanted that to be like the area of focus, and I wanted the rest of the details to almost fade away. I think one thing, so what we've developed is a really like loose, chalky picture. One thing that you can do to really pull that into focus is to start developing your edges. And I'm showing some examples here. So what we're doing when we look for, what I mean by edges is where you see a change from dark to light that happens very, very quickly. So that often happens on the edge of the face. It can happen at the edge of a shadow. It can happen around the nostrils, around the eyes. So that's really what you're looking for. You don't want too many edges. You want a balance of like sharp edges and soft edges. So what you also need to look for is where there's a sharp edge, but also where there's an edge that almost disappears. So if you look on the left hand side, around the side of his forehead, towards the top of his forehead is a very sharp line, but when you get down to the bottom of his forehead where it gets close to the eyebrow, it almost disappears. So if you exaggerate those sections, then you really maximise the attractiveness of your drawing. What's the word? So you kind of improve the aesthetic value of your drawing by kind of focusing on a really good balance of sharp edges and edges that are just almost so soft that they almost disappear. And by exaggerating that, you get like a really pleasing look, I would say. So yeah, keep an eye on that. If you like that kind of traditional charcoal look in digital and traditional mediums, then have a look for that. Look at the drawings that you see and see, is that the trick that the artists are doing to get a really cool result? Maybe it is. Maybe you'll notice it now you're looking out for it. So what I've done now is I've skipped over to my 2B pencil, and I'm just kind of trying to develop the ledges a little bit. It looks a little bit jarring at first. I did go into a separate layer to do that. It does look a bit jarring, I would say, but what you want to do is skip between the chalk and the pencil to kind of get a good balance. So, you know, if you've drawn an edge that looks a bit too much, then you can just come back in with your chalk, almost like a smudge brush, and just kind of knock it back and soften it a bit by going over the chalk or the edge with a chalk brush, maybe in a larger size. What you can do also at this stage is you can start colour picking. So you can start, you can pick the colours from your colour wheel, and it's quite easy when it's in black and white, but also you can just pick the colour from nearby that you think, and just almost not just going black and white, but actually moving into those grey scales to kind of really develop the form and the softness, and just kind of play on those sharp edges and soft edges, which is what I like doing. So you can see I'm kind of playing with the eyes. I've left the eyes till last. I always do this. I think sometimes I like to put off the decision about whether I'm going to include an eye or not. I think sometimes actually it looks really cool when the eye is not in the drawing. I think there's two kinds of artists. There's artists that love the eyes and draw them really early, and there's the artists that can almost rather not draw the eyes at all. My personal taste is, and what a lot of the artists I admire, is the eyes are completely understated. So people like Nicholas Uribe, Benedettinko, those guys just, they're like, the eye is there, but it's so understated. It's just like they could almost leave it off. They don't care. So they just treat it like any other part of the face. So that's kind of why I leave it towards the end, because I don't want to make too big a deal of the eyes. I think it's very easy and tempting to dive into a lot of detail in the eyes. So I really just try and leave it for last, because I know the aesthetic that I like, and it's like minimal on the eyes. But I have developed some form, so I almost made it like trying to play up the 3D elements. So you can see, like, I've made it almost look like Harry here is a statue, so there's no detail in the eyeball, but I've tried to get a sense of like the darkness towards his nose, and then the highlight in the middle of his eye, and then the darkness towards the edge. So really trying to like play up that 3D element of the eye just to make it look really real. So here you're just going to see, I mean, the way it works really is, and you'll kind of get a sense of this in the video, I get the rough, I get where everything needs to be really early on. So, within like 20%, by the time I'm 20% into the draw, everything is pretty much in the right place. And then the other 80% is just playing, and you can just go and you can just play and play and play for ages. So I think that's kind of what you're going to see from now on, is me just really noodling on trying to just experiment and play. So I mean, again, one of the reasons I ditched the video is because I just stopped talking at this point, because I go to this weird zone where I just start just kind of experimenting, and this is the bit that I love and find quite relaxing, is I'm just playing around. And again, 90% of this is bonobo chalk. I'm coming in a little bit with some pencils. I like to see some of those hatching lines. You can see, like, at this point I was like, I'm just going to check where I'm at. You can see I got everything in the basic right place when I first started, but stuff has crept again. So that I thought I'd fixed the eye, but you can see it's kind of crept back a little bit to where it was before. And the mouth, I didn't fix it properly, so I've made his mouth, I moved it down a little bit, so I made his top lip is larger, and then I just kind of made the bottom of the mouth in the wrong place. So this is me just trying to fix it now. And there's two ways you can fix it. You can use the liquify tool, which is under the, if you see on the spanner at the top hand side next to the gallery, you can pick the liquify tool. That's what you can use to nudge things around, and you'll see me doing that in a second with the eye. Or you can just redraw, and it's really easy with the bonobo chalk. You just come in with the neutral background, big brush, and just kind of wisp it out with a few, it's almost like smudging it. You're smudging out and wisping it out with just that chalk coming in and overlaying it, and then just go in and draw it again. So I mean, it's up to you. You can do it. If you're not particularly attracted to the way you've drawn it, I think just start again. Like the mouth, I wasn't crazy about. There wasn't really much there, so I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna manually move it up. I'm not gonna cheat. Well, not that it's cheating, but I'm not gonna use the liquify tool. I'm gonna draw it again, and maybe it will be even better this time. So you can see it's not perfect. I mean, I've still got the top lip. I've still made a little bit big. But yeah, I mean, I think there's an element as well as you're kind of interpreting what you see. So you're you can't look at your drawing and look at the picture at the same time, so you're always drawing from memory. It might be a memory of like a millisecond ago, but you're always drawing from memory. I think the most beautiful drawings for me are the ones that have some element of distortion, and when I say distortion, I mean you notice that the model has particularly large forehead, or they have slightly wide set eyes, and sometimes actually exaggerating that very slightly makes them look more like they are than they would be if you made it 100% accurate. So I think sometimes it's trying to, and again, that's what you lose by tracing, right? So if you're tracing it, it's only ever going to be, everything's going to be in the same place. You lose that kind of slight filter of memory from the process. So yeah, I think I always trying to, sometimes I decide not to fix stuff at all, and it's just trying to get that balance of like things I want to fix and things I want to leave. And it's really, the only way you can figure out that balance is just to keep doing it over and over again, and then you have enough happy accidents where that you start trying to do them on purpose. And that's one good thing about Procreate, right? You can almost encourage the happy accidents. You can, even if you're a bit shy, you can start a new layer and do something really crazy and just see what happens. And there's always that undo button. I love it. You'll see I made his eyes smaller. I usually make them bigger, but I've made his eyes smaller. I mean, often I think there's a natural tendency to make eyes bigger. Maybe I've noticed his eye looks slightly smaller. I've somehow exaggerated that. I'm not sure. So I was kind of in two minds about what to do with that. I ended up using the liquify tool. Oh, I lied. It's not under the spanner. It's actually under the magic wand. But I've just kind of bumped that down a little bit. And I think now I'm just going to go in and do a bit of drawing. That's what I was talking about, coming in with that bonobo chalk and just with a natural colour and just kind of knocking back the drawing and redrawing it in. When I talk about losing edges, you can do that with a light as well. So what I noticed here is the white of his eye almost joins up with the top of his lower lid, which then almost joins up with the side of his lower lid and then onto his face. So if you, rather than try and get your brain engaged, and your brain says, oh no, they're separate things, we need to have a line between them, ignore the brain and just do what you see, which is like, actually, if I look at it, they almost join up. So maybe I can use my eraser and join those things up, and not have a line between them. So I've kind of done that a little bit, and I'll go back and do that a bit more later. So that's all I'm going and doing now in the drawing, is kind of maybe exaggerating those elements. So where is it that I can join things up? So I mean by that, I mean like where can I lose those edges? So you can see another one around the side of his ear or back of his ear, the shadow on his ear I've just joined up with his hair. So you can't, I mean, although we can see where the edge of their head, the back of his neck is behind his ear, it's quite hard to make out. So if it's quite hard to make out, I'm like, I'm just not going to draw it. And then with the people's imagination, they can look at this picture and just figure out where it is. I'm doing the same thing for the eye here. So, I mean, yes, you can see that there's some sharp lines in his eye on the left-hand side, but this is an example of why I leave the eyes till last. I kind of like that you can't see his eye on the left-hand side in my drawing. So at this stage, I was like, I might even leave it like that. I think it's quite cool. So, I mean, let's see what happens with the eye, see if I end up bringing it in. Yeah, I know this is a bit boring to watch, so what I'm really doing is, and you can see I've started zooming in and getting in on detail. I'm just kind of playing between the chalks and the bonobo chalk and the brush, and just trying to figure out what I want to draw. You can see I'm taking a lot of creative liberties here, like for example on the top of his eyelid, there's a bit of hair there so we can't really see it, but I'm pretty sure that line on the top of his eyelid goes all the way across in the photograph, or would do if his hair wasn't there. I've kind of taken the liberty of not drawing all the way across because I noticed the highlights there. So I've just kind of really almost disappeared that line in the middle of the highlight. So it's stuff like that you don't even notice in the picture, but I think the artist is making very careful decisions, or even subconscious decisions after a certain point when you just do it so many times. So I think some stuff we don't even notice is there, but can really add to the overall whole. I think it's quite cool when it gets really close up. I'll put this on Instagram as well so you can see it. But when you get in really close, there's lots of like noise, but there's also some sharp lines that I've got from the pencil, so I really like that combo. And at some stages I'm making the pencil really big so that I can get some kind of midway between almost the pencil and the chalk. And sometimes I get the chalk but I make it really small, so I'm almost using it like a pencil, so the two kind of almost join into one. I would say that the good thing about, I mentioned the Lane Draws Charcoal Master Puck later, he's got one brush that does everything, right? So you can almost get this chalk effect and the sharp effect just in one brush. So I think sometimes for some brushes they are worth investing in, but doesn't mean you can't absolutely have the same effect with the native brushes. All you need to know is which brushes to use, and that's slightly more faff, and maybe switching between one or two brushes to get the same effect. So I'm probably just over an hour in now. I've gone back for some highlights. I think you've got to be really careful with highlights. It's very tempting to put in too many, too bright. Really, like most of your highlights you want to be only very little bit lighter than the drawing itself. So you might want to pick, like from the background, you might want to pick the lighter colour and just bump up the brightness a tiny bit. So you don't want pure white, you want something that's just a little bit lighter than the background, and that's all you need for most of the highlights. Sorry, it's just jumping around a bit, but I'm literally zooming in and out of fiddling. And then you want maybe something that's more of a bright white, only in a few places. I'm trying to create some, what you'll see when you get close up is I've tried to create some more interesting texture, so I'm using the pencil brush and it's almost like scribbling, just to get like a little bit of cool texture going on. So you can kind of see what I mean about the focus. So his like right eye and his nose and the corner of his mouth are like pretty in focus, but then when you look towards his left eye, that's just kind of almost blurred out, and I just think that was quite cool. So yeah, maybe I'll leave it like that, who knows. What I'm going in now is his hair's just kind of like a big mass. I think I kind of like that. I didn't want too much detail in the hair, it's distracting, but I think you just need, talking about the 80-20 rule, so we can't have it all really soft edges, we need like 20% of soft hard edges, so just coming in and bringing a little bit of hard edges around the edge of the hair, just to kind of make it a bit less like a cloud. So have a play, like, I mean, just, you can even do it on a separate layer if you're a little bit nervous. Just create a separate layer and just have a go at kind of like selectively putting some outlines around his head, just to, and the kind of the edge of his hair. Sorry, I've got a bit of a cold. So yeah, just beards. You know what, beards are tricky. Do you draw them? Do you leave them out? It's a difficult decision. I've kind of gone halfway, so I'm kind of hinting at a beard, but I've not drawn all his facial hair. You can see on his top lip. Maybe that was a bad decision, I don't know. Maybe I'll add some in later. But you can see in the shadow I've put some like rough lines that almost like his beard. Yeah, so maybe that's one to kind of have a play with and see. I'm kind of playing with his left eye. I want to suggest that there's an eye there, but I don't want to really draw it. So I'm doing a lot of drawing bits in and then going over them in chalk to make them really soft, and drawing bits in and then going over in chalk. So I even tried the highlight and then I was like, no, I'm going to take the highlight out. I don't like it. Oh dear. It's got quite distinctive like bulging forehead. So just trying to get a bit of that shadow in. I think it's difficult to know what to put in and leave. I think if there's something that's distinctive about them, sometimes it's worth putting it in. Do you think it looks like Harry Styles? I think so. I mean, it's not perfect. Maybe the droop of his mouth on the left, I should have exaggerated a little bit. It looks like a cool picture though. So I mean, if you're drawing someone who's like just a picture on Pinterest and no one knows who it is, then maybe that doesn't matter. Maybe as long as it looks cool, who cares whether it looks like the actual picture? No one knows. So just adding in a bit of hair. How far to go? Think of it. I mean, if you draw in a line and it looks rubbish, you can always just knock it back with your chalk and fuzz it out again. I kind of trying to, he's got quite a distinctive upper lip, where the crease between above his upper lip, I probably know the name for that but I've forgotten, it's quite heavy, so I'm just trying to draw that in a little bit. And here I'm adding in some hair. It's not exact match for the drawing, I don't want it to be too overwhelming, so I'm just kind of freestyling it, baby, making it up and adding some more definition on his ear because it was like a little bit too fuzzy. So again, it's quite difficult to know like the balance of, do I do it in detail, do I make it fuzzed out? So you've just got to kind of try and figure out as you go. I did his moles, his beauty marks, whatever you want to call them. So I thought that would be quite important. Again, those are another thing, it's quite difficult to know where to take in or leave out. Yeah, I was trying to work on that kind of the cheekbone and get that down right. And there we go, it's finished. So that's how we do it. Hopefully this video was helpful. I'll post a picture. Have a go, let me know what you think. I really hope this was useful. It just goes to show you don't need to have all these amazing brush packs or textures. You can actually use the native tools and get a pretty decent result. So I hope you found this helpful. Let me know what you think in the comments, and go over and check out my Instagram picture or my Instagram page at Katie Mobile if you want to see some of my other drawings. Thanks everyone.